Hello and welcome. Now, Tyranids have some really big creatures, even in the basic Games Workshop range. There may be many smaller creatures, such as termagants and gene stealers, but to me the real appeal comes from those really big monsters that you can field in your army. It did get me thinking, how large can these Biotitans actually get? But Tyranids have organisms as large as Titans, but is this possible? And if yes, why? If not, why not? Now, the first thing is to identify the type of organisms Tyrannids are. They look like and are very close to insectoid organisms. They have the three segments, head, body and thorax, with 6 limbs. It does need to be mentioned, unlike insects, Tyrannid wings are counted in the 6 limbs. Winged insects have 6 legs and their wings. This brings a further problem outside the cube square law, that is insects' respiration system. Tracheoles, these are small tubes that allow air through the body of insects, through the spiracle and enters the trachea. From the trachea, the air moves into small tracheoles. The tracheoles end within the body cells. Why is it a problem? It just isn't efficient for large creatures. Now, with 21% of oxygen on Earth, the largest insect we have is the great weta. When oxygen was at its highest, at 31%, the largest insect was a dragonfly, and that had a wingspan of over 2 foot. So even with termagants would be considered too big for this respiratory system. What if they had a different respiratory system, such as a crab? Now, the largest creature with an exoskeleton on Earth is the Japanese spider crab, with a span of 12 feet. Now we have a creature that is a lot bigger. It also has an open circulatory system, no veins or capillaries. It is also an aquatic creature, which means gills. This happens to also, with the buoyancy of water, this actually happens to be allowed for larger creatures on Earth, such as whales, because it removes the constraints of gravity. Which brings us to where Biotitans are created, in hive ships in space. Now, without gravity, size constraints are unlimited to the size of their environment. So given that, the void size has no upper limit. The hive ships do not make landfall, however, but the Biotitans do. So when they land, they have to make sure they don't get crushed under the weight of the exoskeleton. Now, the largest land animal discovered was the Tyrannosaurus, and it was up to 39 meters in length. Why these ancient beasts are so big is still unknown to paleontologists. The dinosaur is housed with an endoskeleton, however. Endoskeletons are great for aiding growth, not just for strength and protection, but with the production of red blood cells. Largest tyrannid organisms we've seen so far is the hierophant. Its size is comparable to an imperial titan, which can be up to 60 meters in some sources. Looking at the models, the hierophant is just half again the size of an imperial knight, which puts us in a size range of the titanosaurs. But then it occurred to me, Biotitans are less restricted by gravity of a planet, as it seems to be with dinosaurs and other creatures. But they are more restricted by time needed for the consumption of a planet, which can be very quick, as in 34 weeks quick. The Biotitans do not appear until week 18. The source of this timeline is the 5th edition rulebook. It says 34.0. Now, if it was days, it would have more than 1 0 behind it for the double figure of hours. Months would make the invasion almost 3 years, which actually would be an excessive large amount of time, creating a defenseless Tyrannid fleet. Because while they are eating, they won't be able to defend themselves as much. And this would be a great time to destroy the planet, and it is a great time, as we saw this in the devastation of Bell, and the fleet Leviathan getting really cranky about it. So with everything going to plan, Biotitans only need to be present for 16 weeks before they are absorbed or reabsorbed into biomass. The size of the Biotitan is kind of unlimited, unlike native creatures that have to adapt to the planet. Biotitans are not as restricted. Being 60 meters makes it viable for a short term that it will be needed. so the exoskeleton itself will not be needed to shed for growth of the Biotitan. The exoskeleton is also strengthened by external muscles. This gives the endoskeleton the same sort of strength as almost a pseudo endoskeleton without a lot of this skin and muscle outside. There are a lot of muscles which attach the shell of the tyranids to other limbs. You can see this on several models. So this actually helps for it to be so large in its relatively short lifespan. With this is also the fact they are created in space, where they are created and dropped onto the planet. Size restriction is the size of the hive ship they are created in, and the gravity on that ship if they're not created in any form of fluid or water. So there seems not to be really an upper limit to a Biotitan's creation, even when we include this cube square law, because for that to have a massive effect on size, gravity is a very much a limiting factor. We can also see how time influences the size of the tyranid. The first organisms are the gene stealers and the lictors, and these range from 6 to 10 foot respectively. To end up with hive fleets and these building size umbilical organisms that connect them to the planet are at the very end of it, literally last week. See, tyrannids have a way to adapt and encourage large growth by adapting to zero gravity of the void and having very limited time on the planet, then reabsorbing all of their dead and living back into a creative process. This allows tyrannids to be as big as they need to be, to do as much damage and destruction in the short term. They are there as massive shock weapons. So if it only lasts a week, it will do enough damage, enough biomass to increase and, to further itself again. This all lowers the issues gravity would have on each organism. Again, we see the larger monsters and larger creatures only being there for a very short period of time. If we look at the devastation of Bell, the actual whole thing lasted a couple of months. The large monsters were there for such a short period. Some were only there for a couple of days, because that's all they really needed to be there for, should Bell have been finished. It didn't need to be there for much longer, so they don't need to have the issues such as an elephant or any other large creature would have. Anyway, that's just a few thoughts and kind of an idea of... It was an interesting thing to talk about, to be honest with you, how large these things can get, because I was looking at it and I was thinking, wait, these aren't actually on the planet that long. They don't have to adapt to the planet or the gravity. And so even if they are struggling under the weight and it slows them down, their exoskeleton, by the time they've done the damage that needed, including when they die, which is incredibly destructive for all of the large tyrannids, they are not, when they die, they just don't flop over, they are absolutely destructive at that point. Means that this is a lack of restriction for them. Anyway, again, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video on how, talking about how big it can be, and honestly they could be any size because they don't have gravity as a restriction as much as any other creature. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, comment and subscribe as always. I'll speak to you soon. Links to Wayland Games and Forbidden Planet and my merchandise, including my comic and Patreon, all down below, and I'll see you all very again soon. Bye bye.